Afternoon. My name is Mark Wenzel. I'm the supervisor of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board branch at Energy Safety. Before the chair starts today's meeting, I'll ask Unique Coleman, an analyst with the board staff, to talk about how to participate.
Thank you, Mark. We welcome public comment during the general public comment period on the agenda and if desired after any agenda item. The public may participate and comment in person or remotely by Teams or by phone. Please note that public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per participant. Participants will be called upon in turn. Participants can use the raise hand function on the Teams video conference and they will be called upon. Participants on the phone may dial *5 when they wish to speak to be placed in a queue by the operator. Please be aware that the Microsoft Teams meeting is recorded. Participants must consent to recording upon joining the meeting to be granted the ability to unmute their microphones. If you do not wish to consent to being recorded, please note your microphone capabilities will remain off during the recording. Please also note that the chat is disabled. You may send written questions and comments during the meeting to our email address, wsab@energysafety.ca.gov. You may also submit written comments after the meeting to the same email address, wsab@energysafety.ca.gov, or to the docket for this meeting. Instructions for doing so are in the agenda. Written comments we receive will be posted on the docket portion of our website. Relevant materials for today's meeting may be found on our website. The link can be found on the public agenda for today's meeting. Meeting materials are also available in the room. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions regarding meeting materials. For those of you who are present in the room, you may sign in on the sheet at entry. Please note that signing in is voluntary. Now I'm going to review the building's emergency protocols for those of us meeting in person. In the event of an emergency, we will exit out of the auditorium doors in the back. We will exit out of the front of the building. We will then cross at the traffic light, heading east and continue down to Everton Place. Continue down Everton Place and turn left into our emergency meeting location, parking lot 51. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Unique. Chair Block, we've completed the housekeeping.
Okay, hello, my name is Jessica Block. I'm chair of the California Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, and I'll now call this meeting to order. Today is March 4th, 2026, and this is our first quarterly meeting of the year. To begin, Mark, will you take the roll call?
Board Member Armstrong.
Present.
Board Member Armstrong, present. Board Member Badger. Board Member Badger sends her regrets. Chair Block.
Here.
Chair Block here. Board Member Haynes.
Here.
Board Member Haynes here. Board Member Mayer. Board Member Mayer has sent his regrets. Vice Chair Porter. Here. Vice Chair Porter here. Board Member Seifert.
Here.
Board Member Seifert here. Chair, you have a quorum.
Hello, this is Maribel. I am here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, hello. Thank you. We will mark you as present.
I have a signal that says my mic has been disabled, but okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll have IT promote you.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad all the 6 of us that are here. Thank you all fellow board members who could be here today. I'd like to thank Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety IT professional Newcom for our support today, and our supervisor Mark Wenzel, and our senior policy advisors Sean Richards and Gifford Long, and our analyst Unique Coleman for assisting with the organizing of this meeting and getting together all this content and research. I'd also like to thank the California Air Resources Board for staff for their use of the room and their technical support. I'd like to ask my fellow board members if they have any opening statements. And I do not have eyes on the virtual. So, are any board members online?
Not for
Have any
me.
opening comments? Okay, thank you. Now let's get to review the agenda. We will, we had a site visit, yesterday and this morning with two host utilities. And we'll discuss those. Next, we'll hear the presentation from the city of Riverside on the coordination with wildfire mitigation. Then we'll hear from our update from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. Then we'll discuss and vote on adoption of a revised 2026 to 2029 schedule for the POU co-ops WOP submission. Then we'll hear a staff update, and then we'll have several annual governance items, including officer selections, our budget consultation with energy safety, and our committee selections. We will also review and discuss our updated bylaws. But first, let's start with our minutes from our last meeting, December 3rd, 2025. Are there any public comments in the room or on Teams or on the phone?
No comments at that.
Okay, no comments at this time, and none by email as well. Okay, do any board members have any comments on the minutes? Board member Hayes? No, okay, no comments. Seeing no comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for December 3rd, 2025 as distributed.
So moved.
Excellent, do I need a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded that the board meeting minutes from December 3rd, 2025 be approved as presented. Those in favor, well, should we do a vote? Oh, let's do a vote. Mark, go ahead.
So on the motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd meeting, Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Armstrong, aye. Board Member Badger.
Aye.
Board Member Badger, aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Board Member Seifert, aye. Chair, that is 6 in favor, none against, no
All right.
abstentions.
Thank you for that vote. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. The Wildfire Safety Advisory Board approves the December 3rd, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Next, the board will report on recent site visits with the utilities. The board discussion is open, so Mark, would you like to introduce them or should we just do opening comment for the board members?
I think opening comments from the board members, anybody who'd like to share their experience over the last couple of days.
All right.
So Chair Block, I'd like to start.
Go ahead, board member Porter.
Yesterday we had a site visit with Anza Cooperative, and it was extremely insightful. We got to see the topography that they deal with day to day. They took us through their inception, their history, their structure of governance, and how they are approaching the daunting task of providing not only reliable electrical service for the community, their members, but how they're integrating the aspect of how they reduce their wildfire risk. I believe their holistic approach that they showed us, some had greater unintended consequences in their attempt to build out a more resilient grid, but their approach at buying was it ductile steel poles, fire resistant, more strength, which is allowing them to make it more resilient. They're upgrading their conductor to a new ACCC composite core, which allows them to wind load lighter and with an engineered approach. Their solar, they have a solar array and battery storage. that they've prioritized to serve the community, not only in a wildfire situation, but also disaster. Allowing the community to not only access fuel in order for generators if they ever were impacted by a PSPS through Southern California Edison, because they're served by radio, a 33 kV line there. They are also exploring and utilizing grants to provide renewable, more renewable sources of generation and battery storage. And looking to expand that to better serve their needs. Their wildfire risk in a standalone facility, I believe it was UCR, facility, research facility, is totally on solar and battery, correct? Yeah, battery. So that they're standalone, reducing the risk of putting in or upgrading the existing overhead construction there, so that they can completely disconnect and abandon that, reducing their risk profile for that research facility. In a truly top-down integrated approach to wildfire mitigation, and probably as time continues and interaction with the board, I think their WMPs will truly reflect their approach and be able to articulate that in a way that we'll understand it better. But the touching their WMP as a practical exercise was impressive.
Thank you, Vice Chair Porter. Any other comments on the field visits?
Madam Chair,
Go for it.
thank you very much. I'd like to begin by extending an appreciation to Kevin Short and David Garcia, the general managers for Anza Electric Cooperative and Roseville Public Utilities and to their leadership team, as well as support personnel in carving out the time in order to be able to take us through their pressure points in order to be able to serve their community with safe, reliable, and economic power. Increasingly, as a result of tours like this, I have a greater appreciation and I believe stronger feeling that community risk identification and mitigation begins and ends locally. And we had that underscored at the meetings that we had attended yesterday, today. It'll continue in the discussions that we'll have with the representatives of the city of Riverside shortly. I feel as though it's an important point in time with the electric industry right now, where affordability is becoming increasingly important in topics in order to be able to make sure that utilities are in a position to be able to continue to develop and implement wildfire management plans that are effective for their community. And being able to tour these facilities, engage with the representatives of the organizations, I think brings a lot more color to the insight that we have in the efforts that are underway. It puts the wildfire management plans into greater context. And I'm really grateful for the amount of time that is expended by the host utilities and their staff in order to be able to give us the insight that I believe is useful as we're trying to meet our objectives as a board. So I just want to express my appreciation to those that have hosted us over the last couple of days and those who support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Haynes. I'd like to also comment, and express extreme gratitude to ANZA and Riverside for hosting us. I know it's, we're extremely grateful for your time. We know your lives are really busy. And obviously, so seeing how much innovation and growth that you're having to accommodate for in both communities. I was particularly intrigued with ANZA and the remote element of their service territory, having to account for fire threat risk through their connections to Edison and surrounding communities. But I was really impressed to see how they are identifying and trying to account for vegetation management issues we haven't seen before. And was really pleased to see also their distinct teamwork and support for their communities. In both cases, also with Riverside, we saw, that as Vice Chair Porter said, that the grant process to help supplement their budgets and make sure that they can serve their community was really noticeable. With ANZA, I was really pleased to see how they've got custom in-house pan-tilt zoom cameras that they manage. And with Riverside, really impressed with the issues that they're having to cope with in their urban spaces and their grid resilience. And so every time we do these types of field visits, we learn something new. And there's always a plot twist with what these utilities have to cope with, and it's really insightful for us. So thank you all very much. And since from here, I will move on to see if there are any public comments from this item on the agenda, either in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email.
No public comments at this time.
All right, we shall move on to item 4 on the agenda. We will hear a presentation from Steve McKinster, Fire Chief, Renee Valdez, Senior Electrical Engineer, and Daniel Honeyfield, Assistant General Manager for Energy Delivery of the City of Riverside. Floor is yours.
All right, good afternoon, members of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. My name is Daniel Honeyfield. I'm Assistant General Manager of Energy Delivery for Riverside Public Utilities. And as you mentioned, joining me today is Chief Steve McKinster from the Riverside Fire Department and Senior Engineer Renee Valdez from Riverside Public Utilities as well. We are excited to be here and share with you how Riverside Utility and Fire Departments work together to protect our community. Next slide, please. A little bit about Riverside Public Utilities. We are committed to the highest quality water and electric services at the lowest possible rates to benefit the community. As well as our customers will recognize Riverside Public Utilities as a unique community asset with a global reputation for innovation, sustainability, and enhanced quality of life. And the unique community asset is definitely something that we have here in Riverside. Not too many cities have their own water and power department, and it's vital to the economic development here, and we're very fortunate to have that. Next slide. So the city of Riverside was actually founded in 1870. And in 1883, it incorporated as a city, and in 1895, they formed the Riverside Light Department, which was the initial beginning of the electric utility here in Riverside. We've been around a very long time. RPU Electric has now grown to over 114,000 customers with a peak load of 650 megawatts, 658 megawatts seen in the summer of 2024. As you probably recall, the entire state was seeing quite an exercise on the grid and asking to roll back your energy use during that time. It was very hot September there in 2024. Now our service area is within the city limits of the city of Riverside, 82 square miles. We have 14 substations, 250 megawatts of internal generation that is primarily used in the summer months. It's our peaking plants, and that's when it's needed the most. We have over 35 megawatts of PV, and that's both customer side as well as 7.5 megawatt solar farm located on a capped landfill located here in the city of Riverside. We have over 105 miles of 69 kV transmission lines, both overhead and underground, and over 1,300 miles of distribution facilities feeding our customers here in the city of Riverside. Now I'll turn it over to Chief McKinster to provide some additional information about Riverside's fire department. Next slide.
Thank you and good afternoon. Again, my name is Steve McKinster, Fire Chief for the Riverside Fire Department. The City of Riverside Fire Department has been proudly serving our community. There's a little missed piece there. I apologize for that. It's actually 139 years, so we left off 14 years. It's built upon our professionalism, integrity, teamwork, ethics, honesty, and then our dedication to safety, not only to the community, but to ourselves and all city members. The mission of our fire department is not very different than most. We protect life, property, and environment by providing exceptional and progressive all-hazard emergency services, public education, and safety programs. And then one thing I would like to add that is in collaboration at a high level for us is we are internationally accredited with the Centers of Public Safety Excellence, and also with the Insurance Service Office as a Class 1 agency. And there's only 4 in the state that are accredited to this level. But a lot of that is in collaboration with the people you see here. Next slide. The fire department serves the community of 333,000 people. We have 14 fire stations serving this community, and it's about 82 square miles. And the organization is a busy one, running over 47,000 incidents a year. And then also as it relates to wildfire and the new fire hazard severity zones and the ones that came out in 2025, we now have 13,356 parcels that are in the high and the very high severity zones. Next slide.
Good afternoon. My name is Rene Valdez. I'm the senior electrical engineer. We're going to get into a little bit of the CPUC fire threat map that we have within the city. As you can see, the city's majority comprised of the tier 2 area, and it's mostly on our outskirts, the service territory that surrounds the city. Most of our city is urban. 78% of it is urban, 8% shrub, 2% hardwood, which includes oak, maple, ash, and sycamore, and 14% wildland urban interface. The wildland urban interface is mostly, as you could see it, on the perimeters of our city. And that's one of the things that we kind of concentrate mostly when it comes to the high fire risk is the perimeters within our city. The northern part of our service territory is bordering the Santa Ana River. So of course with that, that's where we have some of our higher threats when it comes to human-based fire. Next slide. Our service territory, when it comes to overhead distribution, we have about 512 circuit miles. Those comprise 38% of that, or 38 miles are within that tier 2, which consists of 7.5%. And in the tier 3, we only have 3.5 miles, which is a little bit under 1%. And for our overhead transmission, we have about 99 miles of total transmission. 11 miles of that is within the tier 2 and under 0.5% in the tier 3. And with the total amount of lines or miles, it's about 612 miles total for overhead. And as you can see, 50% in tier 2, 50 miles within tier 2, which is about 8%, and then 4 miles within tier 3, which is 0.6, which pretty much gives us under 10% of our system is within the high fire threat areas. One note to kind of inject is we are served by Edison with 7 69 kV miles, and 5 of those lines do fall under the high fire threat. So in case we did have to de-energize those lines, Riverside would have to rely more mostly on internal generation. Next slide.
So this past summer, this was an example of RPU and the fire department working together. And back in June, we came together for a safety training day, both the Riverside Fire Department and our utilities. We're working together, collaborating on many training efforts. We had, you could see in the picture, the bucket trucks and the different fire trucks. It was a great opportunity for us to come together, share what different tools that we use, the different hazards that we come across. This training yard, we were able to simulate many different exercises, including confined spaces and underground vaults, simulating a man hurt on a pole, how we bring him down and get him the medical need that he would need. And additionally, just reviewing different equipment and going over the hazards of a substation with the fire department being there on site. Definitely learned quite a bit from each other. It also helped to establish better relationships, who to talk to during certain emergencies, outage events. But in addition to this, we work with the fire department regularly in emergency situations such as the Great Shakeout or Grid X exercises. So we partner quite a bit when it comes to different training efforts. Next slide. So this is something that came up recently in regards to the Riverside Municipal Code changes, defensible space, the Riverside Fire Department working and providing us the defensible space requirements of residents within the city of Riverside. So any vegetation, native or ornamental, that's dead, dying, overground must be maintained in a condition that would not spread or intensify the ignition of a wildfire threat. This is also something that we're working together on. We have lots of different assets throughout the city, ensuring our facilities maintain the same defensible space requirements. We're working very closely with the fire department on this. Next slide. Another example of us working together is our communication system. So we have the land mobile radio, or LMR. The picture in the scene shows our Box Springs radio site, which is located up on the hill in between Riverside and Moreno Valley. And it's used for the LMR system and also microwave links communication systems with our utilities. The system is managed by RPU, and we have MOUs in place with police, fire, and other agencies here at the city. And this allows for easy communication across multiple departments. And this is very critical, especially in emergency situations. Next slide. Now, on occasion, there are power outages that definitely require both departments. And when this occurs, the fire department will reach out to our grid control center to de-energize the circuit and definitely eliminate the electrical hazard. They want to make sure the area is safe for them to perform the activities that they need to do. And some examples could include a car accident with a utility structure, such as a pole, where we have live conductors potentially on the ground. So they definitely want to make sure that it's safe. Or a fire within a structure, they're going to want that building de-energized before they enter and eliminate any additional hazards that could present themselves there. So this is something that we work together with them on. We will dispatch a troubleshooter, kind of our first line of defense, determine the situation. He's in constant communication with our grid control center, and they will determine how to best de-energize that situation and eliminate that threat. And in some cases, that can happen right there in the office through our SCADA system, and we can de-energize from the substation and de-energize the whole circuit and make it safe. Okay. Next slide. Pass it over to Chief McKinster once again and talk about our pump pod device, another example of the water utility working with the fire department.
Yes, just last month, a long partnership that we've been working on with this device. It's a trailer that we're able to flow water in to save water. So the fire department, obviously, our training is requiring us to have a lot of hose lines out and master streams, and we wasted a lot of water in the process. And understanding this natural resource is critical, not only to the city, but to the region. This piece, if you know firefighters, we don't like change and we don't like the way it is. But really the value in this is pretty much is self-explanatory. And now that we can recirculate the water and just continue to use it, It's just gonna bring benefit not only to the region, but to our community and to the utility. So thank you for the support with this. Next slide.
So back to, the wildfire, the design and construction standards have been updated, especially when it comes to the high fire threat. We do use the California Power Line Fire Prevention Field Guide. This field guide was a collaboration between CAL FIRE, the CPUC, the Forest Agency, Bureau of Land, PG&E, SCE, and San Diego. That's kind of our guidelines, and what we've implemented here has been the SMU 20s. The SMU 20s are actually non-explosive fuses. So we are starting to implement those within the high fire threat. The way that we do that is if we have any kind of reliability issues in circuits within those areas, we piggyback on those work orders, and we make sure that the whole circuit is being addressed, not only the high fire threat areas, but also the residential and anything that has to be done in those areas. We're also trying to implement the fuse savers. The fuse savers are more of an interrupting device. This doesn't cause any sparks or any kind of fire safety issues. It does communicate back to our system. We're still in the implementation for these devices, the same as a trip saver. Both devices are smarter devices than your typical fuse. So that's what we're trying to implement in some of our areas, not everywhere, but mostly in a high fire threat. We're also going in and replacing our smaller conductor. When we say smaller conductor, it's like the number 4, the number 6, or even the number 8 copper, which those tend to be some of our weaker conductors within those areas. We have about 9 miles about of those conductors, and we are going in and trying to replace it with stronger number 2 aluminum core steel reinforced conductors. We also have about 80 locations of lateral fuses within those areas, 350 transformers, and a little bit under 1,400 wood poles. With the wood poles, we're still looking into duct. That was some of the things that we were kind of tasked to see, even with some of the conventions coming up, just looking at alternatives of what we can do in these high fire threat, especially when it has to do with construction and vegetation management. Next slide. And now I want to open it up for any questions if that's possible. Thank you.
Sure. So how is the city, or the utility, collaborating with, city fire poised to address, fires or ignitions in the high fire threat district areas identified?
How is that identified, or how are we working with them to identify?
Yeah,
this?
coordinating, what is the response, the suppression or response in the event of an ignition, or I think in the presentation, we mentioned that also along the Santa Ana River, there's also human element to ignitions that ultimately could create a wildfire situation.
So, I mean, from the public safety side, not only the fire department, but the police department work alongside with RPU. There is a public safety engagement teams that the police department is out in these areas consistently looking at the human element that is in some of these spaces to prevent wildfire or prevent those issues from coming into the community. The fire department also has arson investigators, and we are, I guess, in essence, patrolling the city on city property, and we coordinate with the utility through ISRI on our inspections. With the new Riverside Municipal Code 6.16 in the high and very high areas and those 13,000 parcels, we're actually investigating or looking at those areas to make sure vegetation is maintained, as we said in the PowerPoint. So we'll communicate with our partners within the city if we find areas that need to be maintained or if they're just happen to be missed, so that we're reducing that risk.
Yeah, and kind of to expand on that, is there an integrated system of communication, a relay or a lockout? Is there a coordination with fire and police to help investigate in the high threat districts?
So that's the area that we actually go and we look at, so at least annually. So we kind of like once the grass is cured, and Riverside is more urban than it is in like Wildman, but we have some urban interface. But in those areas, we're out in those areas during that time, in checking those areas through, I guess, a little protocol that we go through, and we document it on ISRI for all to see.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, Chief McKinster and Mr. Holyfield, I'd like to just follow up on some of the collaboration questions that board member Porter was asking about. I can understand that, you know, as departments of the city, that there's a straightforward means by which you're able to coordinate with one another in being able to, you know, identify the need for creating defensible space and then working in that collaborative way with the Department of Permits as well as yourselves in order to be able to come up with a program that would achieve the outcomes that you're trying to obtain. What's the nature of that coordination? Is it you know, as formal as a memorandum of understanding in terms of, you know, roles and responsibilities and the activities that each individual organization would be undertaking, or is it more informal? If informal, how is it that you are able to, you know, identify something like the need for defensible space and actually put, you know, the necessary justification together in order to be able to take something as significant as that and be able to work it through the governance structure that you have in order to be able to get the approval of you know, proposal that you're trying to make. So how does it begin? Is it formal? Is it informal? And you know, how do you work through that decision-making process collectively?
So it's informal, and I think that's the benefit that we have within the city is we know each other and we meet frequently. The city has a executive leadership team meeting that we're in every 2 weeks. And a lot of that stuff is communicated informally. But to your point, I think as we progress into some of these new areas, because the fire department is transitioning from something that is probably more reactive to something more proactive. And we're actively doing that now. So for example, with the new ordinance, we're going to be doing inspections for the first time this year. But as it evolves, I think to your point, sir, it's probably something more formal would be beneficial to each agency. But I think to our benefit, we know each other from regular meetings. So that's the benefit there.
Yeah, having those relationships, you know, well established, it really helps to, you know, when we have different efforts. And I think something we didn't touch on, but our own wildfire mitigation plan, we talk with folks from Chief McKinster's office. They review it, they provide us with feedback. It's really nice to have that resource that's an expert basically in-house. And so it makes our plan much better. They may have questions about the different equipment we're using, things like that. So it's just kind of that knowledge transfer and sharing of information that is really great. And it's one of the big benefits of us both being a department of the city. And like you mentioned, we have regular ongoing leadership meetings, and we talked about different activities and what's coming up, and you know, how that's gonna impact, different departments and how we work together to solve these problems.
And so I appreciate the fact that, you know, the benefit of being able to coordinate, is in part derived from being able to have, you know, informal, relationships, between the department heads. And then with that, the relationships that have, you know, lead to something like a defensible space. How far do you think it's conceivable to be able to take a structure like that? For instance, I mean, you know, Roseville Utilities will, you know, continue to try and look for hardening its system. And I think very quickly what can happen is that you get into matters that require a fair amount of subject matter expertise in order to be able to really prioritize what the different opportunities are and what then you would select to pursue. And so I think from a practical perspective, we probably encounter, we have many opportunities to be able to collaborate, but it can only take us so far. And so, you know, and so perhaps I'm groping for a question here, but what's your reaction to that? You know, Chief McKinster, you indicated that there might be some opportunity to be able to more formalize what it is that you have underway, but from a practical perspective, we're only going to be able to go so far, I would think.
No, and I think that's a good point. And, you know, again, there might be a way, there may be some way to do that. I think another one that comes to mind is just recently, there's an area within the city that has a dead end water supply. And that affects us. And so, you know, when we identify these significant gaps, I guess maybe not a gap, but issues that have arisen over time, we always sit down together and say, okay, what do you need from us and what are we going to do from you? Because for us, it means more water trucks, you know, water tenders. But, you know, for me as in the fire department, it's pretty simple. When there's a fire, I go. So it doesn't change my reality, whether there's a plan or there's other pieces there. I think we're all trying to grapple with this new reality, especially with what happened in Palisades and the Eaton area and how we can get ahead of it as much as possible. And I think all of us probably deal with some governmental piece where there's not more people to do it. It's just something that we're trying to fit in to how we can best serve and protect our community.
Okay, I might expand on that a little bit. It's not, there's only so many people, there's only so many dollars.
Yeah,
And
that's the point, yeah.
it goes back to, you know, the point about affordability and how is it that we can make sure that our community is kept safe, but recognizing that there's only so much that can be done in order to be able to provide that assurance.
And I think to your point, I think Palisades, Eden, Paradise, these fires are not fires that are, it's vegetation coming into the community. But once the community starts to burn, that there's no system that's designed for a community that's burning. And I think that's a question we get in our community a lot. I think it came up this morning. So we are, I bring this point up, is we are a class 1 department, which means we have the fire coverage. That is at a high standard, and we also have a water system that is designed for the community at a very high standard as well. So even with that, it takes 6 fire trucks for 1 structure fire. So if we have 10, well, there's no system that can handle that. So there is some reality that comes into it for sure.
Just one final area, and that is, what are the steps that you take in order to be able to bring the community along and help them understand the role that they have to play in being able to, you know, support the different efforts that you identified as being important. But at the same time, you can only do so much. It requires the community itself and, you know, your residents to be able to step up. What are some of the steps that you take in that regard?
Well, I think the fire service in general is in the community quite a bit. Obviously, we're there and there is a big presence. I think more now than ever, especially with the municipal code that we just put in for defensible space. We're educating the community, but what we're finding is that through all the big incidents that are happening, people are ready and want to do their part. Because there aren't enough fire trucks, like I just said. There aren't enough firefighters to mitigate what happened in Palisades. So it's really the fire department plus the community that is going to really equal this safer community as it relates to vegetation management and defensible space. So we have regular meetings. We have public safety or public education people that are in our community on a regular basis, at least twice a week. We're in the different community areas and community groups quite often.
I said that there was only one other thing that came to my mind a moment ago, and so I apologize because I'm going to ask you another question. And that is, what can we do? What can an organization like the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board do in order to be able to highlight pressure points that you have and use our position in order to be able to sensitize others to the validity of that and steps that could be taken in order to be able to help mitigate?
That's a great question. It's probably not one that I'm prepared probably to answer, not being exposed to this. This would be my first time, but maybe you can help me there. But that's something that I would like to research as I'm learning a lot in this space today and in the past. So, Danny, can you?
Yeah, I think from an electric utility perspective, a lot of it is kind of that knowledge sharing. And we do a lot of that through different groups that we're already affiliated with. And we have lots of colleagues and utilities across California. But it's always nice to hear just this morning describing the ductile iron pole that ANS is using. Right? We've looked into that as well. What are they using those for? What are they trying to prevent? Just kind of sharing that different information. We always want to, what's the best thing that's out there? Are you aware of these different devices? And we talked about the fuses, the non-explosive that we're transitioning into and changing out, especially in our the higher threat areas within the city of Riverside. So I guess it just kind of being that platform, you see wildfire mitigation plans from all the utilities across the states. We've been down to San Diego Gas and Electric. We've been down to others, learned a lot of lessons from them, and so forth. But it's just nice to share that information. I think would be very beneficial to other utilities and what may be a good option for them. They're trying to solve a problem that prevent, obviously a catastrophic wildfire from occurring, starting from the electric utilities. That would be my kind of response to that question. Just sharing that information would be great.
Chief McKinster, Mr. Holyfield, and Mr. Valdez, thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Do we, yes, and I also would like to echo, thank you, Steve, Renee, and Daniel very much for being here and for the wonderful tour this morning and meeting. Really appreciate it. I do want to ask if any other board members have any comments or questions, any online? Or any, do we have any public comments for this conversation in the room, on Teams, or on the phone, or by email?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. And can I confirm no further comments from board members virtually? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 5 from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. Steve Kerr, the Program and Project Supervisor from the Electric Safety Policy Division, will present an update on energy safety's review of investor-owned utilities, welfare mitigation plans, safety culture, and executive compensation. Steve, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
All right, we need to get our audio figured out here. Can you speak again? Can you guys
Can you hear
me?
me?
Yeah, can you stand by? I can hear you, but we need to fix our audio. Stand by.
Okay.
Are we only getting audio from over here?
Yeah, that down there.
Is he coming through the owl?
Yeah, it's coming to the, and,
Steve, we test one more time.
Sure, testing.
That's better. Yes. Okay. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Block and members of the board. I'm Steve Kerr, a supervisor with the Energy Safety Policy Division. Next slide, please. And one more. Thanks today for ESPD updates. I'll be covering the status of investor-owned utilities WMP evaluations and guidelines in the risk model working group. Then safety culture branch updates, including safety culture assessments, executive compensation structures, and certificates. Next slide. Starting with IOU WMPs. Next slide, please. Decisions on the 2026 to 2028 base WMPs issued since the last board meeting were the SCE draft decision just before the holidays, followed later by the decision on February 23rd. The independent transmission owner WMP decisions were issued for LS Power on January 28th and Horizon West Transmission and Transbay Cable on February 9th. The SDG&E decision February 2nd, and PG&E decision February 5th, followed by the Liberty draft decision on February 18th and the PacifiCorp draft decision February 26th. We expect to publish decisions for Liberty and PacifiCorp later in the spring once stakeholder comments are received. Next slide, please. We held a public workshop on December 17 to hear from electrical corporations, stakeholders, and the public on implementing Senate Bill 254. Topics were the new requirement for WMPs to include an estimated cost per avoided ignition for each risk and future WMP schedules to align with the general rate case. Written comments were received from electrical corporations and Techno Silva. We expect to announce future public workshops as WMP guidelines are further developed. Next slide, please. A proposed WMP submission schedule, hyperlinked here, was published on January 26th, and we're reviewing comments received from electrical corporations. The proposed schedule includes, in 2026, there would be no 2027 WMP update submissions and no maturity survey. In 2027, all electrical corporations would submit a new base WMP covering 2028 to 2031. And then in 2028 and beyond, electrical corporation schedules will diverge to each follow its own general rate case cycle. Next slide, please. Energy Safety is revising the WMP guidelines based on lessons learned and to incorporate new Senate Bill 254 requirements, including alignment with general rate case cycles, petition to amend, requirements around cost per avoided ignitions, and the approach to WMP updates going forward. We will hold public workshops through spring, aiming to publish a draft for comments in the summer or fall of this year. Next slide. All mentioned documents for our WMP program and public meeting materials can be found on Energy Safety's dockets linked here, with the note that SB 254 material will be on the guidelines docket. And next slide. One other update regarding Senate Bill 254. The resiliency study will explore long-term reforms that protect access to insurance, reduce litigation costs, and ensure large electrical corporations are accountable for safety and have the financial health to attract low-cost capital on behalf of ratepayers. SB 254 requires CAL FIRE, Cal OES, Energy Safety, CPUC, and California Department of Insurance to collaborate and provide recommendations for the study to the California Earthquake Authority, who is the administrator of the Wildfire Fund. CAL FIRE, CPUC, and Energy Safety have provided recommendations which can be found online at the following link. Next slide. Right, next are updates from the risk model working group. Next slide, please. The RMWG is developing an approaches document on how investor-owned utilities in California model wildfire risk and the pros and cons of different approaches. Each monthly meeting includes a technical presentation and discussion that informs a chapter of the document. Topics in 2026 so far include, from January, the likelihood of equipment failure or an outage and likelihood of ignition definitions and calculation method. In February, a presentation from a UC Berkeley team developing a tool to validate, verify, and conduct sensitivity analysis on utility risk models. And for March, how climate change is incorporated into utility risk models. The approaches document will be drafted by the end of summer 2026, circulated within the risk model working group for review in the fall, then reviewed by Energy Safety and published on the risk model group docket by the end of 2026. And next slide. Lastly, safety culture branch updates. Next slide. 2024 safety culture assessment reports were published December 19th, 2025. SB 254 revised Energy Safety's SCA cadence from annual to biennial. Therefore, SCA process and schedule changes to align with SB 254 requirements are in progress. And a CPUC Energy Safety joint public workshop on coordination of CPUC and Energy Safety SCAs is scheduled for next Thursday, March 12th. Next slide, please. The 2025 executive compensation structure decisions for Bear Valley, PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E were published on December 29th, 2025. And the executive compensation guidelines are also currently in revision to reflect changes from SB 254. Next slide. And the Bear Valley PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E each submitted certificate requests on December 2nd, 2025. Review of these certificate requests are currently in progress. And last slide. This concludes my presentation on ESPD and Safety Culture Branch updates. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Steve. I'm gonna kick off with my first set of questions. Can we look back at the timeframes for the new guidelines that are being generated right now? So imagine that there will be a series of significant changes in the guidelines based on in this new world of SB 254. Is that true?
That's true. Did you want to go back to that slide?
Yeah, I'd like that, if that's all right. Or, yeah, are we in control of that? Yeah, here's the.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the timeline for generating these new guidelines, and can you remind me of what dates the guideline will be informing?
Yeah, could you go up one more slide, New? There we go. So we're wrapping up the review of the current base guidelines, and those will carry us through for the next year, and we would not be having updates to those WMPs in 2027. We're going to be focusing this year specifically on the updates to the guidelines and also looking at the maturity survey. And then each electrical corporation will submit a new set of base WMPs for 28 to 31. And then after that, they'll be getting synced up individually with their GRC cycles. So the submission schedule that's linked here has more detail of how they'll get staggered potentially in 2028 and beyond to sync up with their GRC cycles.
When will the new guidelines be officially completed, or do you know the answer to that? It sounds like they're in draft form now, but they should be published so that they can write them in 2027, so that they can be published this fall or so?
That's correct. Yeah, we're looking to have them published in the fall, probably around September.
So one thing I'd like to just mention as food for thought for the board members and you in energy safety is that now that the board's role has changed with respect to SB 254 and our comments for the guidelines and the plans, we do have expertise that might inform some of the elements of the changing WP guidelines, and in particular with respect to the cost per avoided ignition, and would like to maintain an open communication about some of those things. So would welcome some, we'd like to be able to potentially consider commenting on this new phase of the WP guidelines.
Thank you so much for that offer. Mark has passed on some of the expertise, and so we'll look to continue to coordinate with the board. And we'll also be having additional public workshops regarding the scheduling and then also the updates that will be proposed to the guidelines.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, my second question is with respect to the risk model working group approaches document. Will that be a write-up on those on the January, February, and March workshops or meetings?
I believe the approaches document is focused on how each utility kind of comparing how they model wildfire risk and pros and cons. And then I think there's also a report that comes out that summarizes the monthly meetings that occur which will all, like each meeting, they're kind of focusing on a different chapter for the approaches document. And
I see.
all of that will be incorporated into it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Nick, would you mind going forward to the risk model, the slide just after the transition to the risk model working group? Yes. So would this approaches document then have a section per utility describing their process?
I don't know right now the
Okay,
breakdown, but we can look into that and get back to you.
okay, looking forward to that. All right, that's my, the end of my questions. Do any of my fellow board members have additional questions? For Steve?
Board Member Batcher has hand raised.
Excellent. Board Member Thatcher, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Steve. On this same page, excuse me, when this is finished, the document is done and it will be circulated to RMWG. What is the final product and who will use it? How is this process being utilized? So a lot of information. Who's going to use it?
You know what? I would have to talk to our expert, Will, who's leading the group, to get more information on it. I'm a little newer and just getting introduced.
Okay. Mark, hopefully we can find out because I think it's an interesting product and what they're doing. I'm just not sure of what the use is.
Thank you, Board Member Batcher. Yes, we can take that question back to energy safety and make sure that you have a response.
That's great. But thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
May I just insert a comment there? Board Member Batcher, my assumption is that at least we will use it as the board, from the board, to see the distinctions between how each utility is doing their risk modeling, and we can see the pros and cons or, best practices across. So I think we'll be able to, I'm assuming that we'll be able to see more clearly the differences in the approaches across the utilities and be able to vet them more appropriately. So at least that's what I'm hoping. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, that's important, Madam Chair. I do think that, my worry is always a lot of information gathered, a lot of staff work goes into it, and then boom, what are we doing with it? So I hope that we can use it, and hopefully it can inform others as well for some progress or some changes or something.
Agreed. I'm hoping for some more transparency. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any board member Seifert is there? Does she have any comments? No.
I actually, you asked all of the questions that I would have asked. So thank you, both to Mary Bell and you, because I would have echoed your questions. So appreciate it.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you for chiming in. Any other comments or questions from other fellow board members? Okay. Are there any public comments in the room, on Teams, or on the phone, or by email?
No public comments at this time.
All right. Thank you. From here, we will take a short break and we will come back. How about at 2:25? Is that all right? Yeah, we'll come back at 2:25 on the dot. Thank you all, and we will see you when we return. Oh, it is, sorry. All right, welcome back. Call the meeting back to order. Next on the agenda, the board will discuss and vote on the adoption of a revised schedule for publicly owned utilities and electrical cooperatives to submit their wildfire mitigation plans to the advisory board for the years 2026 to 2029. Mark, can you describe the revision?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of today's item, staff is recommending a revised 2026 to 2029 wildfire mitigation plan or WMP schedule for the publicly owned utilities and co-ops. The proposed change is to move the deadlines for Lassen Municipal Utility District from 2026 to 27 and from 2028 to 2029. So I know you'll recall the board adopted the current schedule for 2026 to 29 at its most recent meeting on December 3rd. Lassen Municipal Utilities District subsequently submitted a written request on February 6th, asking WSAB to move its WMP due dates from the even years, 2026 and 2028, to the odd years. Lassen is planning to join the Golden State Power Cooperative, which has 3 co-ops and Trinity Public Utilities District as current members. Golden State Power Cooperative has provided joint procurement for consulting for WMP development. The 4 current members of the Golden State Power Cooperative have their WMPs due in the odd years. And Lassen would like to be on the same schedule to take advantage of that joint procurement and collaboration with the other co-ops and Trinity. Staff recognizes that in addition to considering the request on its own merits, approving the first schedule change will set a precedent. And so we want to be thoughtful in our analysis of the request and make a recommendation to the board. And in particular, to think through the goals and considerations that the board adopted in approving the schedule in December. And those goals and considerations included maximizing effectiveness, focusing both utility and WSAB resources, increasing cooperative exchanges, and balancing flexibility and certainty. Schedule changes do affect other utilities and WSAB members and staff workload. So we would propose that they require compelling reasons in keeping with those considerations. And specifically, if changes begin to unbalance the schedule, that can reduce the time for collaboration and reduce the effectiveness of iteration in WMP development. The other possibility, not necessarily present in this request, but worth considering in general, is that, especially if there were repeated schedule changes, could lead to a utility doing fewer iterations of this WMP. For the last request, staff did feel that the opportunity for increased cooperation with the co-ops and Trinity was a compelling reason. The change would shift board and staff work from 2026 to 2027, and by spreading more utilities across the same amount of resources next year would reduce the amount of time available to the other utilities who have their plans due in 2027 for staff collaboration. As the first request here, as a single shift, that impact should be manageable. And as far as that goes, the early collaborative exchanges for this year are barely underway, so there has been no wasted work or no stranded work with Lassen so far. Staff would recommend to evaluate any future requests case by case, looking at those considerations the board has adopted, as well as any others it chooses to consider, looking at whether there are compelling and specific circumstances and on the impacts to the board and to other utilities. The staff also, and at the December meeting last year, committed to bringing a broader review of the schedule to the board at its December 2026 meeting. So conversations with the utilities, including the early collaborative exchanges, will help us to understand planning cycles and the effectiveness and timing of that collaboration. So based on what we've learned, it's possible that staff could eventually recommend further adjustments, either one-offs or adjustments to the entire structure, but much too early to draw any conclusions on that today. So With that as our analysis, the staff recommendation is then to adopt the new schedule that moves lessons deadlines to the odd years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Vice Chair Porter?
Yeah, Chair Block, having reviewed the request and consulting with, staff, and this being the first, request in itself, I'd like to make a motion and recommendation that we adopt the revised schedule.
Second.
I need to, take comments at this time before we take a vote. Are there any public comments in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email?
No public comments at this time?
We do have one public comment in the room.
Oh, all right, yes. Go ahead, Jessica Nelson.
Good afternoon, Chair Block and board members. My name is Jessica Nelson. I'm the General Manager of Golden State Power Cooperative, the association representing electric cooperatives and rural electric utilities. Golden State Power Cooperative supports the staff recommendation to amend the WMP schedule for the publicly owned utilities and electric cooperatives. Modifying the schedule would enable Golden State Power Cooperative to collaborate with Lassen Municipal Utility District on the same timeline as the other small rural not-for-profit electric utilities that are members of Golden State Power Cooperative. This collaboration provides significant cost savings benefits to both LMUD and other GSPC members, which in turn supports the goal to maximize affordable electric service to our ratepayers. Cost pressures are particularly important to manage for small utilities, and we believe this amended schedule will increase the cost effectiveness of our work to mitigate wildfire risk in our rural communities. We appreciate your consideration of this request. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you so much for the comments and for being here. Do we have any other comments from board members, virtual, board members at Badger and Cyber? Do you have any comments? So with no more additional comments and a motion to adopt with the amended schedule, and a second, we shall take a vote to approve the revised 26 to 29 schedule for publicly owned utility and electrical cooperative wildfire mitigation plan submissions as presented. Mark, will you take a vote?
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong, aye. Board Member Batcher. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Board Member Mayor. Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Board Member Seifert, aye. Chair, the vote is 5 in favor, 0 against, and no abstentions, 2 no votes.
I'm sorry, board member Armstrong, for not including you. You need to make more noise if you're not in the room. So, says thank you for the vote. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. The Wildfire Safety Advisory Board approves the revised 2026 to 29 schedule for publicly owned and electrical cooperative wildfire mitigation plan submissions as presented. Okay, next on the agenda, we'll hear an update from board staff on responding to Energy Safety's request for advice on risk modeling and vegetation management. So Mark and Sean, take it away.
Good afternoon, board members and members of public here and online. My name is Sean Richards. I'm the senior policy advisor, one of the senior policy advisors for the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. And today I'm going to be giving an update on the response to Energy Safety's request. So on March 1st, 2025, Energy Safety sent a request to the board to determine the adequacy of utility wildfire risk models under extreme conditions, similar to those seen during the January 2025 LA fires. And we've discussed the progress over the past 2 board meetings, so today I'm going to be speaking on the conclusions. But just as an overview, in September, Dr. Alex Hall from UCLA presented the conditions present during the LA fires, and then in December, I presented some updates on staff findings. Today, I'm happy to announce that the staff draft of the report is out for public comment, and today I will discuss the outcomes. Next slide, please. So our first focus is on operations models. So these models are designed for real-time decision-making, utilizing current data and near-term forecasts. And as you can see in these images, the three IOUs, emergency management operations, include many experts and key stakeholders making real and near real-time decisions. So given the dynamic nature and reliance on immediate inputs, we currently have no recommendations regarding their adequacy or the usefulness of their outputs. Next slide, please. So our next set of recommendations addresses two key areas. One is enhancing transparency in risk models, and the other is advising caution around absolute risk values. So the primary goal of our evaluation was to bring greater transparency to uncertainties inherent in these risk models. The board previously adopted recommendations last year that would help build that transparency. And so building off that previous work and focusing specifically on the extreme conditions, we found that the uncertainty increases significantly under the extreme wildfire conditions, similar to those seen during the LA fires. So because of these heightened uncertainties, we're recommending that energy safety exercise caution when making decisions solely on the absolute values of risk. So utilities use planning models for long-term projection and project selection for mitigation strategies. These are used to both rank circuits by risk, so that would be the relative use of risk value, and then utilities also report more information for their highest risk rank circuits in the wildfire mitigation plans. So as seen here on the left side of, or the right side of the screen. Utilities also use these risk values not to just rank, but they are also reporting the amount of risk that is mitigated and reduced through mitigation, and to develop cost benefit analyses. And so I have two, so one of the first ones is to, again, implement the recommendations from last year. And then I have two animations on the slide, so if you could just, the first click. So ranking risk values for each circuit or circuit segment relative to risk is a risk model comparison compared to another risk model comparison. So a model value relative to another model value. The second clip, please. So the second would be using those absolute values of risk, and that's looking at a model risk value and then adding in real values such as cost or absolute risk reduced. So again, first set of recommendations is looking at increased transparency, and then again, just exercising caution when looking at this as absolute values rather than relative. Next slide, please. The second set of recommendations is based on looking at how model adequacy is tied to the intended use of models and the importance of exploring alternative model approaches. So the adequacy of a model often depends on whether its outputs are used for ranking or the cost benefit analyses. So if energy safety wants to understand if different extreme scenarios would alter how these models are used, one effective approach, as seen here on the left, could be to compare average values to extreme or tail values to determine if the rankings adjust in any way. And if those adjustments are significant and tied to geographic or categorical instances. The second of this, and as noted, the uncertainty of wildfire spread models in particular grows considerably under extreme conditions, so pushing these models beyond their limits.
So again, thinking about intended use, if the models are intended to model similar conditions to those seen during the 2025 LA fires, then energy safety should actively inquire about alternative or supplementary model approaches for calculating wildfire consequence in particular. Understanding the pros and cons of these alternatives will be vital for more robust planning under realistic extreme scenarios in the future. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned in the beginning, a staff draft report on these recommendations was published on February 13th for a 3-week comment period, which ends this Friday, March 6th. After that, staff will work on incorporating the comments into the report, and then in the next June board meeting, we'll bring the final version back to you for a vote on adoption. Next slide. Or that's, yeah, end of.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any more presentation elements? Thank you very much. Are there any public comments in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email?
No comments at this time?
Okay, and do we have any comments from my board members, virtually, board members Armstrong, Seifert, or Batcher?
Nope, none here.
I can make a quick comment.
Go ahead, board member Seifert.
Thank you. I'm only making this comment to just emphasize a couple of points that Sean made. And we've talked about some of these things before, but just underlining the fact that we made the recommendation for transparency in modeling because transparency is important to be able to do a sufficient review. And to be able to do a sufficient review of modeling is important so that the models it ensures the accuracy of the models and that they are appropriate for the purpose that they're being used for. So are the inner workings of the model actually producing what they say they are, and is what they say they are what we need to be able to perform our mitigations the most effectively that we can? And another thought about the false precision, it might seem like a small point, but it's important because putting a bunch of numbers after a decimal point, it's not true precision. And I think false precision enables or provides a false impression of accuracy when that accuracy is not actually there. So if somebody sees a lot of decimal points, they think, oh, that's very precise. But I think people should be able to accept and embrace the fact that uncertainty is an inevitable component of wildfire modeling, and knowing how to interpret and to use and make decisions in light of that uncertainty is something that we all need to do if we're working with models. So those are my only 2 comments.
Thank you very much, board member Seifert, and I'll just riff off of that and continue to emphasize what you have emphasized, which is that consequence models are, for the most part, incredibly qualitative at this point and might be valuable for relative comparison, which is, I'm sure, what they're being used for. But when we get down to it, not understanding that not seeing transparently into the components, we actually can't know how reasonable those relative results actually are. We know that the Rothermel models were the equations that came out of these experiments, experimented with wind speeds up to approximately 35 miles per hour. So using these models to understand extreme weather scenarios is essentially impossible at this time. And the scientific community is working tirelessly as we speak to try to resolve these issues and come up with better solutions. But we really do need to get the level set towards understanding what we're looking at and how these models are best resolved. So thank you, board member Seifert, for your comment. And yeah, realistic consequences cannot be modeled in the consequence model. So thank you very much, Advisor Sean Richards, for your tireless work. It's so I believe our report is remarkably transparent towards what we're trying to articulate, making the path forward much clearer for energy safety. I think that's priceless. Thank you so much. Any further comments from board members? Right. We shall move on to the next staff update. The next, so Mark, will you present on the staff update, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk through the planning for 2026, including work streams and strategic planning, and then ask in a couple of places board members for their particular input. Next slide, please. So top of mind for us right now is review of the WMPs for the POUs and co-ops for those that are due this year. We have early collaborative exchanges that are scheduled from March through mid-July. So we've reached out to the first group of the utilities and look forward to meeting with and collaborating with those. The submission deadline for 20 WMPs this year is October 2nd. We, of course, have a board meeting scheduled for December. That is probably not enough time to review, draft, and get board input on 20 WMPs. And so we would aim to bring a draft advisory opinion to the board, not in December of this year, but in March 2027. And so that would be the full cycle for WMP review. We are proposing to engage board members through briefings. At least a couple, of course, it's always happy to talk to the board, but at least a couple in the spring and a couple in the fall in 1s and 2s as the board members find it convenient to schedule. We would plan to bring our observations from the WMPs as we review them and questions for the board members, what to ask the utilities, what to follow up on, specific questions on topics or initiatives in the areas of each board member's expertise, and what resources there might be for the staff to pursue, perhaps written resources or experts to talk to. So in addition to sharing our observations, that kind of exchange with the board is what we'd be looking for in the spring, and then again, once the utility submissions come in. Next slide, please. Our proposed approach to WMP review, so one part of that is to keep improving on the board members and the staff's understanding of each utility and to build on that collaboration. I think we've heard from board members that the site visits like the ones that board members described earlier in this meeting continue to be valuable in understanding each utility's context and the work that they're doing. Another element is looking for iteration and maturation in WMPs. What has evolved since the last plan and what's coming? What are the utilities committing to? Last year, we published focus areas on risk identification and preemptive de-energization. Those are going to be particular areas of attention in staff's review this year. We're also working on focus areas now on protective equipment and device settings, which is also sometimes called fast trip or fast curve or EPSS. We'll be asking some questions about that in review, but primarily we'll plan to add those in more depth to our review of plans next year. In terms of actions, one of the statements the board has made repeatedly since its very early days is for specific and concrete actions from the written in the WMPs. I have written them here as SMART goals, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And board member Mader has set the rubric for actions. What information is needed and do you have it? How is the decision made? How is it acted upon? So those will be lenses through which we look at the WMPs this year. And the last element I want to talk about is in terms of approach to long-term mitigation plan, review, and recommendations, is that with guidance from the POU committee to focus less on format and more on risk mitigation, and that's review and recommendations. So with that as our proposed approach, happy to take any questions or feedback from board members at this time.
Outstanding. I will get it out of the way. The public comment in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email.
No public comment at this time.
Okay. Board members, any comments? Oh, Board Member Haynes.
Chair, I would just like to say that as a member of the policy committee, we've had an opportunity to be able to meet regularly with staff on the suggestions here. And so feel as though this is headed in the right direction and continues practices that we've begun to undertake in the recent past. And I think that will help us be able to, bring to the desired outcome that we had when we launched these different initiatives. So has my support.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments from board members? Mark, thank you for this thoughtful structure. It's going to be much more productive than our past technique. So we're looking forward to it. With no other comments, I will take us to the next agenda item.
Sorry, board member. Sorry, Chair Block, that's one of 3 areas in the staff report
I did
where we
read that last point. Please carry on.
have opportunities for board input. Of course, please interrupt at any time. If I get the next slide, please. The second area we want to talk about is, I mentioned the focus areas. So staff is working on 2 protective equipment and place settings, which is sometimes called PEDs, and situational awareness. And the goals of these focus areas are twofold. So one is to provide actionable summaries of options, which helps in the board's advice to utilities as they look to advance in maturity. And then the converse of that is previewing what staff will be looking for in WMP review. So signaling to utilities, what the intention of staff at least will be. The other goal of the focus areas is to develop staff's understanding. There's a lot in the field of utility wildfire mitigation. No one knows all of it. So we're taking that big problem and dividing it up into pieces. Currently working on PEDs, as I mentioned, also called fast trip or fast curve. So to oversimplify, this is changing the sensitivity of settings on protective equipment to cut current after smaller perturbations. So if there is an incident, especially in a high fire threat condition, that incident on the electrical equipment doesn't then turn into an ignition. It's considered a relatively low cost capital intervention, but of course there are costs and trade-offs and things to consider. Situational awareness is all of the elements of understanding the environment in which the utility is operating. So weather is maybe primary among these, especially for things like high wind days, also things like smoke detection cameras, and you mentioned the ANSYS cameras earlier today. So we plan to bring write-ups of these 2 focus areas, PEDs and situational awareness, to the board in September, which should then also assist us in communicating with the POUs who have WMPs due in 2027. Next slide, please. Looking ahead past that time, we'd like to keep adding to our library of focus areas. There are some options for ones that we could take next, and we'd really appreciate board input on the prioritization. The boundaries of any of these can overlap a little bit and be a little bit arbitrary, so there may be ways to move elements around. But the ones that we've considered so far are inspections, including aerial inspections. So use of drones is really growing in prominence with utilities. The general finding has been that aerial inspections find things that are not detected in ground inspections, including the types of faults that require, or types of situations that require immediate correction and would not be seen purely from the ground. The second category here is system data. So this is inventory, conditions, and analysis of the facilities and equipment that a utility has. To some extent, it also includes things like data governance, so how data is held, updated, and validated, quality of data, and how it's used to set priorities. A third area here is grid hardening. So this is one where the boundaries can be larger or smaller for sure. Includes things like equipment replacements, expulsion fuses or non-expulsion fuses, covered conductor, undergrounding, and then safety culture is an element not required by the WMP submission requirements in Public Utilities Code 8387, but it's an important part in understanding how institutions respond to challenges and whether necessary information and decisions are flowing effectively through an organization. Another category here is emergency preparedness and community outreach. So this includes working with partner agencies, such as we heard earlier today from Riverside, whether those are in the same governmental structure or not. Also involves working with community members to understand their concerns and to share information that the utility has on what it's doing and what that means. And the last category staff have considered is plan metrics and monitoring. So public utilities go to 387 does require utilities to review their plans, to look for deficiencies, and consider ways to measure performance. So this focus area would be to explore those requirements in more detail. So with that, I'd be happy to get any feedback that you have on your priorities and what comes next for staff to review in these focus areas.
This would be a good opportunity to discuss that.
Yeah, this is
All right, this is the moment. Board members, what would we like our staff to be focusing on in over the next year?
Chair Black, from the being involved with the POU subcommittee, we have bridged the subject of aerial inspection drone programs and utilizing them. Yesterday, there was a phrase uttered that I thought was extremely hilarious, but to the point, it's how do we enter? We can do cheap and a lot, or few and expensive. And with that comes different capabilities, but to make it more palatable for that POU co-op community, it's, creating protocols, having a format by which they'll be utilized. How do we train and deploy individuals? Utilizing the resources that are already there, or does the community contract that out? And if not contracted out, who owns the data? How is it going to be interpreted, processed, and integrated into WMP metrics? So to me, I think it's a wide open field to really dive into, but dive into to where that we come up with a solution so that it's accessible to everyone in the community. Hopefully it's cheap and a lot.
As a vote for inspections. All right. I'm gonna call on my board members. Board member Haynes.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm in a position to be able to give you a thoughtful response to this question. I think that it's the right question to be asking, particularly at this moment where SB 254 has directed that, or more narrowly focused the responsibilities of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. I feel as though receiving input from the POU community would be useful in being able to answer specifically the focus areas. And for me, what I would like to be able to do is create a structure where we have an opportunity to be able to hear from the publicly owned utilities what it is that they feel as though are areas that our focus could be useful in either better understanding what it is that they're putting forward in terms of the risk mitigation within the wildfire management plans, as well as then what it is that they could use in terms of our being able to focus ourselves in areas where they feel as though they've run into problems that they're trying to And so with that, what I would like to be able to do is create a structure, and it could be, in the next board meeting or something like that, in order to be able to have an open discussion with the POU community about the focus areas that they feel as though would be useful for us to be able to make progress on. For instance, the resiliency study that the California Earthquake Authority has been directed to conduct has created that open question. And what I see in the response from the California Municipal Utilities Association is an area of pressure points that they're asking be considered in that study in order to be able to help them address some of the challenges that they have. And so it would be, I think, useful for this board to be able to create a similar type of dialogue, given the responsibility that we have in order to review and recommend what the utilities could do to improve on their wildfire management plans. So it's not, I don't have, let me see, a clear thought in terms of what those focus areas are. It seems to me as though a step that we could take in order to be able to help me get there would be to, have that sort of dialogue.
Yeah, to speak more on that, I think we have started to do that. We've reached out in our last board meeting in December. The joint associations came to us and with the prompting of staff to start to set the agenda of the subcommittees conversations in the work in the POU working group. And I think we examined their first entrance into that arena last month. Yeah, it was last month. And so we're looking for more of that. And through that, we'll be able to communicate more of what the POU community wishes to focus on the areas and inform us on how we help them get to a place that they're more effectively addressing WMPs, their mandates to reduce risk, for grid hardening, for what we're pushing for, more manageable risk modeling platforms, and even starting places for the community, an entry level. So in the fact that we can't have the entire board on the subcommittees at the time, we are starting to do that, ask the questions and allow them to speak to us instead of in the past as we have mostly barked at them. So I do think we're getting to where you need us to be.
Right, and I think that that's in part why it is that, I'm a proponent of the committee structure that we've set up, that, what we can't, we have to be respectful of the open meeting requirements that we are bound by. And so it would just seem to me as though putting ourselves in a position to be able to have a not the same and not and as detailed of dialogue as what the committee can have with the POU community, but to be able to have that with the board in total might be helpful. And so that's, I think where I'm at right now. I have a great deal of respect of you and the committee. But I'm just speaking maybe personally in terms of what it is that would be useful for me in order to be able to, have a better sense as to what the POU community is thinking.
Board members. Board member Armstrong, do you have any comments? Or ideas, I should say?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chair Block. I tend to agree. I mean, if we're going to look at a focus area right now, I believe Vice Chair Porter's mention of inspections, including aerial, there's so much going on in that field right now. I would lean, for myself, as that one of the potential focus areas.
Thank you. Board member Batcher, comments?
There I am, off mute. No, I unfortunately had to step out and came back in, so I didn't hear the whole discussion, but so I probably am not as well informed as I need to be to answer your question, Chair.
All right, thank you. Well, the discussion is of this list of the potential focus areas. When engaging with the POUs, what could we focus our staff on in the next year in one or any of these topics? That might be the most fruitful to focus on next. But I will leave you with that and go to board member Seifert and ask if she has any thoughts, and if you have any, please chime in after that.
Sure. Hi. Yes, I'll just make it short and sweet in that I don't know that much about grid hardening, but I would like to know a lot more because it's clearly one of the most important components of utility safety in terms of wildfire. So you can add my vote for that topic.
All right, thank you. That's interesting because I also had a leaning towards grid hardening. I think it has something to do with that interplay of the hardening and the environmental exposure component.
Yes.
But, yeah, but I could see the inspections being an interesting part of that as well. So the process,
Yeah.
I could see how the process of inspections being a different focus area than the grid hardening reporting and outcomes of those grid hardening efforts.
Yeah.
I find it really also interesting to think about the system data processes and what goes into the system data components and what might be missing in those system data components that would be revealing towards greater grid hardening and inspection. So I kind of am leaning towards those top three actually interplaying with each other. But I also would like to see if any of those, as we do these field visits and we see the efforts that each of the POUs are doing in these areas, it's really insightful to see at these lower scales, in these smaller service territories, how they're handling some of these issues. And could be a way that we could report some of our learnings from the POUs to the energy safety's processes with the guidelines and the IOUs. So I would just bring in the concept of maybe look into where the WMPs are eager for more, or the IOUs are more eager for more direct, or the energy safety, I should say, would be need more direction from us on any of those topics. Board member Batcher, do you have any further comments?
I don't, well, maybe a little one. Some of these topics are huge. Grid hardening is huge. So I don't know if there's a need for us to narrow it, or I mean, all of these are pretty important topics, of course, and are pretty fundamental right now. So I don't, that was my only concern about selecting some of these, if there needs to be a narrowing of the focus, perhaps.
That's really interesting. I think we should take that back to our staff and ask them to do that. So thank you all for your comments. Mark, Sean, what do you recommend that for the next steps?
Well, thank you. That feedback was very helpful. It sounds like we have a little bit more homework to do, so I think we're gonna take the feedback back and try to work with the POQ committee and with the board as a whole on what might come next.
Okay, great. And then it sounds like you'll bring this back as a topic in our next board meeting then.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Well, great, thanks. So next slide, please. The other set of work streams is the request from energy safety. So that's the other half of what the board does. You heard a summary from Sean on the progress on risk modeling. Again, just a plug that the public comment for that is due on Friday. So look forward to any input that we have from stakeholders. And then we'll plan to bring that to the board for consideration of a final version in June. Regarding the vegetation management approaches document, vegetation management committee staff have met with energy safety. Energy safety is still working on those materials, plans to have a draft documents that have a draft of documents that will be available in the autumn. When that happens, we'll again engage the vegetation management community members for their responses and reactions. Areas where has some mutual interest. So Chair Block, you also raised the possibility of board members or the board offering input on WMP guidelines. So this is the last item that I have structured for input. Of course, input is always welcome, but if there are areas that the board members have ideas or focus topics that they'd like to weigh in on for energy safety and see the potential for an energy safety request on this.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. So I just want to reiterate, the energy safety is creating their new guidelines document for the mitigation plan years of 2028 to 2031, which feels like so far in the future, but they're making that mitigation plan, the WMP guidelines document this spring. And so there will be a public comment period and opportunities for us to make our own suggestions through the process. So I don't yet have substance on what I'd like to engage in there, but it seems like that's an opportunity and might come back to energy safety and ask if there's anything we can do to contribute. And then with respect to I think, yeah, I don't have any further comments about future requests that we might receive from energy safety, leveraging our best expertise on the board, but that is our engagement mechanism. So I recommend to all of us that we think about what is standing in our expertise that we'd like to engage with energy safety in the near future.
Great, thanks, Chair Block. I think this goes as well to the final slide, so we can move on to that. I think that one of the elements of the strategic plan is continuing to build the relationship with energy safety. And one of the requests has been, more informal collaboration as well as formal collaboration through things like requests. So specifically on the guidelines, there may be opportunities there for informal contact between energy safety and board members in ways that allows energy safety to ask its questions and board members to provide their input. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just finish on strategic plan, then the last part of the staff update, I promise. So offer thanks to the strategic planning committee for their guidance. Wanted to use this as an update for where are we on the board's priorities and where what might come next. So you'll recall there are 4 priorities in the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. The first one was actualizing our mission in collaboration with energy infrastructure safety. Generally speaking, on this one, we are hitting board milestones on that. You may recall from the last strategic plan, there was a desire for more informal collaboration, just as I described. We've had a few more of those, including Captain Energy Safety's safety culture team with board member Armstrong, vegetation management discussions that I mentioned. Energy safety staff have also been really helpful to board staff as they work through some of the work streams. And so many thanks to those folks. In our survey of board members in energy safety in January, there was still a desire to make further connections between WSAB members and energy safety. So this year we've added a new objective on regularly exchanging information. And some of the conversation that we just had ties into that as well. The second priority is building relationships with external partners. One of the goals under this for last year was to set a cadence for conversations with key partners. The strategic planning committee approved that list last spring. We've been hitting our targets in terms of connecting on that cadence for each group, with a few exceptions. So, for example, one of those elements is monthly calls with the POU and co-op working group. At the end of last year, a couple of those calls were canceled for scheduling reasons. But big picture, we're continuing to develop those relationships. One proposed change for this year is to add an objective that really highlights the collaborations with POUs and co-ops, including the early collaborative exchanges. The third priority, retaining and developing staff. So I'm pleased to say we have a great team, continuing to develop that. I'll note that until recently, the longest that any staffer had been with Wildfire Safety Advisory Board was 20 months. So Unique has now passed that mark and sets new records every day. So we hope to set a long new high water mark on that and meet some of these retention goals as well. We've also had, I would say, having worked with SIG for a while, better than average support for professional development for staff, including formal trainings, ability to go to conferences, support for site visit attendance, and then individual development plans where staff set professional development goals, whether those are with the board, which we hope for a long period of time, or eventually to move on to some other goal. In our semi-annual surveys, staff satisfaction, that's a KPI for these objectives. We did get some mixed reactions to the prompt. My coworkers and I worked together as a team and on whether we were making best use of the in-office days that are required. So those are some areas we need to work on, but I think we can do those within the objectives that are currently in the priorities, so there are no proposed changes there. And then the fourth priority, structures and practices for successful implementation. I didn't hit our milestone in bringing our priorities to discussion to the board last fall, so apologies to that, but the discussion on focus areas, energy safety requests, and that collaboration today has provided good input, and I'll bring that topic back to a future meeting. Other than that, we have stabilized some of our processes. Unique has written SOPs, and we had our first annual review of these last year, in the last couple of months, and we were able to update those. We've also reworked a lot of our processes to reflect the emphasis in SB 254. One element that's on the strategic plan that's going to take a while to finish is getting all of our internal files in order. So everyone who has staffed the board before have their own idea about what files to keep and where they should go and how they should be labeled. So we're finding a lot of duplicates and a few holes as well. But we're working through that a little bit at a time, and then in addition, applying retention schedules to those documents. So in terms of developing structures and practices, some flux thanks to 254, but I think in general, making good progress on that and building up those practices, those structures. So the last item I'll note is that the strategic plan runs 2024 to 2027. So later this year, I'll ask the strategic planning committee to provide guidance on the timing and process for a successor to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Are there any comments from the room, the email, the phone? or online?
No comments at this time?
Okay, any further comments from board members? All right, if that concludes the section of the agenda, we shall move to item 9, which is officer elections. It's that time of year. And we will evaluate as a collective board to elect a chair and vice chair to 1-year terms. Shall I just dive into it? Motion to nominate the chair? Okay.
Chair Block, I'd like to nominate you again for chair.
All right.
Second.
Got a second? So, are there any, so I should take other nominations?
Let's see, I looked up Robert's Rules of Order, and we do have our legal advisor online, but it means that you have to vote on the motion in front of you. So the motion is to elect yourself.
So I've got a motion and a second, so then we vote on that.
You asked for discussion from board members and then vote.
Okay. Okay, board members. Let's discuss. Any comments?
Just very grateful that you're willing to serve again.
Thank you very much, board member Batcher. I am willing to take the nomination. Any other comments? Yes, board member Haynes.
I'd just like to say that, over the last 18 months, going back to what it is that your vision about being able to bring all of the board members together in order to be able to give consideration to the strategic plan, leading to the focus that I think has been brought to the board since in recognizing that we are part-time board members. We rely extensively on a limited staff. That has allowed us to be able to focus in ways that we hadn't previously. I think that we've got a good set of focus areas that we've identified here. 254 has given us some further guidance on that. And so I think that we're in good stead, and that is largely due to the leadership that you've provided. So thank you.
Thank you very much, board member Haynes. It means a lot.
And Chair Block, being part of the executive committee with you, I've seen your leadership, the ability to liaison with a number of stakeholders that we have, and be able to always guide us in the right direction. Even though some of us don't want to go in that direction, you moved us there. You work extremely well with the staff and contribute on a level that I have to say is amazing.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that feedback. Okay, so with that, we'll call a vote on this motion. Mark, will you take the vote, please?
Board member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board member Armstrong, aye. Board member Badger.
Aye.
Board member Badger, aye. Chair Block.
Abstain.
Chair Block abstains. Board member Haynes.
I'll say aye for both myself and Chair Block.
Aye from board member Haynes. Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board member Seifert.
Aye.
Board member Seifert, aye. Chair Block, you are reelected with 5 votes in favor and 1 abstention.
Thank you all for your votes of confidence, and I'm honored to serve as your chair, and hope you all know that I'm always available to move the collective forward to our best interest of the state. Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate board member Porter.
And I would like to second that motion. Now, comments from board members online. since they're either here or not online, I would like to say that Vice Chair Porter, you've been an honor to serve with, and you provide outstanding direction for me as new in the policy field. And I'm grateful that you are considered or willing to run again as, or to be Vice Chair again with me. So thank you.
You've been my choice.
Yeah, right. Any additional comments? All right, let's take a vote. Mark, will you?
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong, aye. Board Member Badger.
Aye.
Board Member Badger, aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Vice Chair Porter.
Abstain.
Vice Chair Porter abstained. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Board Member Seifert, aye. Chair Block, 5 votes in favor, 1 abstention, none against.
All right, the votes have it, and so Vice Chair Porter and I will continue to serve for another year. Thank you all very much. We're on to the next section of our agenda, the energy safety consultation on fiscal year 27 to 28. The board will now discuss and vote on the adoption of a statement of priorities to energy safety for the fiscal year of 2027 to 28. Mark, can you describe the draft statement?
Thank you, Chair Block. So by statute, energy safety is required to consult with the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board on its budget each year. This item provides a consultation to energy safety on the fiscal year 2027 to 2028 budget. So important to note, this is the budget that starts July 1st of next year. It's not the one that's currently being discussed in the legislature. Department contributions to the administration's budget are requested well in advance. So this is actually, although it seems far off, this is actually timely input to next year's budget priorities. The budget consultation prioritizes continued staff retention and development in line with the strategic plan. It also requests continued travel support for site visits and meetings for the board as required by statute. And we've heard from the board as well how important those are. It also requests additional staffing resources for the board's review, in particular of WMPs, but also of energy safety requests. So the staff, although it has grown in the last couple of years from 2 senior advisors to 2 senior advisors, an analyst and a supervisor, my understanding, I joined in the middle of that growth. My understanding is that that's been very helpful. It's still quite constrained, given the tasks that are required of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, including review of 20 POU WMPs a year. And so the consultation here requests additional staffing resources, and in particular in the areas of utility engineering, environmental science, and specifically utility vegetation management, and public utility regulatory analysts, experienced to support additional analysis. So in light of SB 254 and expanded engagement with POUs and co-ops, meaningful and supportive engagement would greatly benefit from those additional staff resources. With that, I'll return to you, Chair Block, for any more discussion or questions. Thank you.
All right. Board member comments? Member Haynes?
Yeah, just let me ask, is this a board action item that we have in front of us?
It is. There's a motion, an action in the agenda to adopt this draft statement of priorities.
I would like to move support for the staff's recommendation. I do have an observation that I would like to make in conjunction with this. And so I'm not quite sure what the proper protocols are, but so first I would like to move that we support the staff's recommendation. I find that, as staff has indicated, the travel opportunities that have been available to us provide remarkable insight into our ability to be able to do our job. And I think that it's unquestionably important for us to be able to continue these tours. It's also obvious that our ability as a board to be able to properly function rests on the shoulders of staff, and that our being an advocate for enhancing the staff resources is prudent and necessary. The area that I have a little bit of question about is in regard to utilities engineering expertise. And I get a little bit dumbfounded in that area. Not so much in the space that is in regard to environmental science and utility vegetation management, but I just wonder the extent to which we're able to be more effective and useful as a result of bringing in staff that has the engineering expertise. And so I just have questions in that space. And so after a second, perhaps what we can do is have staff better explain the usefulness of expertise in that area.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member.
But let's, yeah, we want to go to a second and then.
I believe, Board Member Batcher has her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have a process question, so I'm not sure if my process question should be asked after the motion is seconded and we go into discussion. Perhaps that's a better place in the process.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Batchard. I'd like to, at some point before the motion is considered, would be proper to ask for any public comment.
All right.
Has not yet occurred on this item.
Right.
So I think the motion, look for a corrective tweet from our council, but I think probably the best process at this point would be to ask for a second. If there's a second, ask for public comment and then have board member discussion, and then I can be happy to answer board member Haynes' comment at that time.
Okay, so I will go for, ask for any public comments at this time for this, agenda item, in the room, online, on the phone, or, by email.
No comments at this time?
Okay, thank you very much. So no public comments. Let's move on to the board member comments and process questions. I'll take your lead on that.
Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second it. This is Maribel. So we have the second.
To have a discussion. Okay, excellent. So we have a motion and a second to discuss the item. What is protocol from here?
The board can then debate the motion.
Okay, excellent. Board member Haynes, do you want to expand on your thoughts?
I've said what I wanted to, and so ask other board members to bring up their questions.
Okay, board member Batcher, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just one thing, though. I think Tim actually wanted an answer to his question, did he not? Do you not? Regarding.
That's correct, but I'm not a parliamentarian, so I thought that the approach that was taken is grab a second and have board comments and then staff response. But I don't know the proper protocols here.
I didn't want to jump ahead of your any response to your question. Mine's simple. To Mark, and that is, I'm not familiar with how the resource agency budget process works. I'm pretty familiar with the budget process, obviously, but in putting forward our budget, the advisory board, is it separate and apart from energy safety, or does it go up to the secretary's office for approval and goes in a package to finance? Do we do our own, if you will, presentation to the resource agency and then to finance? Or are we represented, quote unquote, by energy safety? I just don't know how the budget process works because I have some questions depending on if it's one way or the other.
Thank you, Board Member Batcher. Yes, the energy safety budget includes support for Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, including the staff. So the process here is that energy safety consults with the board on the board's recommendations for the budget, and then that becomes part, energy safety chooses how to make that part of their budget request and interactions with the agency and the governor's office.
Okay, that's helpful to know. So then we're really dependent on energy safety to defend our budget to the secretary as well as then to Department of Finance. And just an obvious point to be made, we will be in a transition period. So just a point of fact. So thank you, Mark, for that clarity.
I also have a question. It seemed that in years past, when we've considered these types of positions, for the engineer and the environmental scientist, that those labels are not interchangeable, even if at the same sort of qualification level. So if we were interested in getting a staff person, and if we in the end had to choose, if we're interested in a policy person or someone who could look into regulatory limitations to grid hardening, for instance, like, could we add that to this request? Or would we, it seems that we're trying to just reiterate the requests we've had in the past. But I've heard from board member Haynes is that it's good to be able to pivot to the needs of the POUs, and maybe the regulatory research would be a beneficial branch of support as well. So that's a process question too. Could we add that as well? And question to the board members, should we prioritize one or two over the others?
Thank you, Chair Block. I think this is a good opportunity to address Board Member Haynes' question at the same time. So these categories are informed by the classifications available to energy safety to hire. So utilities engineer is also a civil service classification. When we talk about things like grid hardening, it heads some of the other pieces there. I want to give full credit to Gifford and Sean for the work that they've done. They both have some engineering background. Sean, of course, is an engineer with a graduate of an engineering degree. Having said that, there is specialized expertise that comes in the utility engineering space. So, when we talk about protective settings or when we talk about options for grid hardening, understanding those systems, we're finding out is a really important part of asking questions and making advice and recommendations. So the common classifications that energy safety uses and which we could hire into are utilities engineer, environmental scientist, and analyst. And then there are gradations within each of those. For example, there is a senior utility engineer classification. There's analyst 1, 2, 3, 4, and senior environmental scientists and so forth. But those are the, very generally speaking, on the policy analysis. And then of course the public utilities regulatory analyst is the last classification with levels again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the general categories that we have available. Energy Safety also has IT folks, so we have some of them in the room here with their own set of classifications, administrative support with their own classifications. But in terms of board support, those would be the classifications that we would primarily be drawing from. And that's one reason that the recommendations are framed as they are.
Sure. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but most of these, our main request is to maintain staffing at its current level. Our wish list or additional request is to add these dimensional classifications to complement and better formulate recommendations with the expertise that currently is on the board now. We have a utility engineer, we have a veg management expert, environmental scientist, POU expertise. And I think that this request was to better position staff to create a more dimensional approach, more in depth, and also not overburden the current staff now, creating a jack of all trades, master of none. So I think that was my understanding of the actual request.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Porter. That's right. So the draft language this year echoes in many ways the language that the board adopted last year. Some of that recognizes a challenging budget situation in fiscal year 25-26 that we're in now, and 26-27, which is being debated in the legislature with various projections for available budget. And so, as you noted, preservation of what the board's request, and then also the addition of further resources to support the activities that the board would like to do, all of the things the board would like to do, as you said, balance staff workload, to bring in additional resources, to provide for continuity and institutional knowledge. And all of those things would benefit from having additional resources or staffers assigned to the board.
Thank you for the response to the observation that I had made, and so I'm satisfied with that response. Thank you.
With that, are there any amendments to this document that anyone would like to propose? Do we feel like our questions are answered? Board Member Haynes says yes. Board members virtually? Any further comments or concerns?
Actually, a point of order, I think we have a motion to adopt as is and seconded, and I think we should be voting on that.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So no further comments. I'll entertain a motion to approve the statement of priorities for this fiscal year 27-28 budget as presented.
Chair, I believe we have a motion and a second.
All right, then
Fine.
we shall vote.
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong, aye. Board Member Batcher.
Aye.
Board Member Batcher, aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Board Member, Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Board Member Seifert, aye. Chair, 6 votes for, 9 against, no abstentions.
Thank you. The ayes have it. The Wildfire Safety Advisory Board approves the statement of priorities for the fiscal year of 2027-2028, the budget as presented. Okay, so we're on to committee selections. Next on the agenda, we'll vote on the adoption of committee selection for board members. We will hear from Supervisor Mark Wenzel on the future outline.
Thank you, Chair Block. Next slide, please. So staff's recommended approach is to continue the progression. Committees will have determined for specific tasks and not just standing committees for subject areas. So the proposal does have 3 standing committees: the executive committee, the POU and co-op committee, and strategic planning committee. And then 2 ad hoc committees on energy safety requests. That could change with future requests. So those would be vegetation management and risk modeling. The executive committee members are ex officio, the chair and vice chair, and so we'll fill this in with any amendments, but also in particular to include those now that the board has adopted them.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any public comments in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email?
No comments at this time.
Any comments from board members on the proposed committees? Going once, going twice. Seeing no comments, we'll entertain a motion to approve the committee selections as presented.
Chair, I'd like to propose a motion to adopt the committee selections as it is.
Thank you.
I second it.
All right. Thank you very much. It's moved and seconded. Let's take a vote. Mark, take it away.
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Armstrong, aye. Board Member Badger.
Aye.
Member Badger, aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Member Seifert, aye. Chair, 6 votes for, none against, no abstentions.
All right. Thanks for the vote. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. We approve our committee selections as presented. Next, we will discuss and vote on the adoption of our bylaws updated to reflect recent changes to the statutes. Mark, will you present?
Thank you, Chair. Next slide, please. As has been mentioned a few times in the meeting already today, Senate Bill 254 last year changed some aspects of the board's authority. The proposed updated bylaws reflect those statutory changes with edits to Article 2, purpose, Article 4, duties and responsibilities, and Article 8, limitation on power and authority. But there are no changes to the processes or other mechanisms by which the board does its work. So happy to take any questions.
Move for the changes. Or I'm sorry, move to adopt the recommended changes to the bylaws.
Second.
And as a point of order, I just take public comment real quick. Any public comments in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email regarding our bylaws?
No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion to adopt as they stand and a second. Mark, will you please take the vote?
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong, aye. Board Member Badger.
Aye.
Board Member Badger, aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block, aye. Board Member Haynes.
Aye.
Board Member Haynes, aye. Vice Chair Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Porter, aye. Board Member Seifert.
Aye.
Board Member Seifert, aye. Chair, that's 6 votes for, none against, no abstentions.
Excellent, thank you. The motion has it, and our bylaws are approved as presented. Our next agenda item is proposed items for future meetings. Any board member comments to recommend future items? Board Member Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to have the representatives of the POU community come and discuss the letter that they had sent to the California Earthquake Authority in regard to the SB 254 study. In the letter, the POU community discusses some of the items that they would like the Earthquake Authority to address. Many of the items within the letter are not, I think, germane to the responsibilities of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, but several do appear to be so. And I think that it would be useful for them to discuss those items because from my perspective, what they do is they give insight into matters that are germane to the wildfire management plans that they submit and give us some additional context in our advice that we provide in response. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Haynes. Mark, you didn't, Sean, you have the,
We have a hand from Board Member Batchor.
Board Member Batcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. By the time of our next meeting, obviously the CEA will have put out their report April 1. And there most likely will be legislation before the legislature. And perhaps more than one bill. So it might be helpful to have an update as to the current posture at that time, if you will, of 254, and whether or not I think it would include, whether or not any recommendations include what the POV's views have done or recommended would be interesting in that. But the passage of time, much will happen between now and our meeting when it comes to 254. So I guess in general, I'm just saying it would be helpful to, answer Member Hines' question or observation, but also an update at the time of where 254 is. Not 254, but the responses to 254.
Excellent, thank you for the comment. I would also like to mention that these last two comments also help, we can marry that up with our these conversation, like what's overlapping with the CEA, the CMUA comments to CEA, and where those priorities that they mentioned fit into priorities that we might want to investigate. Any other comments from board members? All right, any other comments? Seeing no more comments from board members, are there any comments, public comments in the room, on Teams, on phone, or by email?
No comments at this time.
Okay, so those agenda items have been proposed. And now we can move on to the next item. We have, if we have any general public comment, this is the opportunity for specifically for matters that were not on the agenda. So are there any additional public comments in the room, on Teams, on the phone, or by email?
On here.
No comments at this time.
All right, great. So we are now to adjournment. This is the last item on the agenda. Thank you all for participating in the meeting. We have to have a motion to adjourn, correct?
No motions required, Chair, you can adjourn the meeting.
Thank you very much. So we are now adjourning. Thank you all for your time. This was a productive conversation, lots of topics to discuss about our trajectory. Thanks everybody for participation, virtually and in the room. If you have any other points of order, please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to get a hold of us. Our email is wsab@energysafety.ca.gov. Thank you, New, for being here and helping keeping the meeting synced up online, and Unique and Sean, Gifford, and Mark for keeping our initiatives afloat, and for a great structure for a productive coming year. And I'd like to also thank the members of the public who have attended today's meeting and who have participated during public comment. Well, we only had one public comment section today. Your efforts will help all Californians. Thank you all. We hope to see you at our next meeting, which will be June 3rd of 2026. The board meeting is adjourned. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you.